The Grand Nexus station floated in the darkness of space like a massive jewel. Its crystal towers reached outward in 12 directions, one for each member species of the Galactic Council. Admiral Hyunwoo Kang stood at the observation window of the human delegation ship, watching the station grow larger as they approached. His reflection stared back at him, showing a man in his 50s with gray touching his temples and worry lines around his eyes. "They're going to vote against us," said Ambassador Sora Lee, standing beside him. She was younger than Hyunwoo, barely 40, but today she looked ancient. Dark circles hung under her eyes. She had not slept in 3 days. "We followed every rule," Hyunwoo said quietly. "Every single protocol." "Rules don't matter when they're afraid of you," Sora replied. Behind them, Captain Junho Park checked his tablet again. The young officer had been reviewing the case files constantly, searching for something they had missed. His hands trembled slightly. "Admiral, the vote count predictions are getting worse. The Vrexian Empire convinced 2 more species to vote with them." Dr. Yuna Choi, the expedition's xenobiologist, looked up from her own work. "They're calling us aggressive. Us! The Vrexians conquered 6 species in the last century, but somehow we're the dangerous ones." The docking procedure took another hour. When they finally entered the council chamber, Hyunwoo felt his stomach tighten. The room was enormous, with floating platforms arranged in a circle. Each platform held representatives from one species. The human platform was the smallest and newest, added only 50 years ago when Earth had been welcomed into galactic civilization. That welcome felt like a distant memory now. The council speaker, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms, called the session to order. Its voice echoed through translators into every language. "We gather to address the human question. The charges are serious: aggressive expansion, unauthorized military buildup, refusal to share critical technology. The Vrexian Empire has brought these concerns to our attention." The Vrexian ambassador stood. He was reptilian, covered in green scales that reflected the chamber's lights. "Humanity is dangerous," he said, his voice cold and precise. "In 50 years they have colonized 15 worlds. They build warships faster than any species in Council history. They hoard technology and refuse cooperation. They are preparing for war, not peace." Sora Lee stood, her hands gripping the railing of the human platform. "That is a lie," she said, her voice clear and strong. "Every colony we established was in unclaimed space or on worlds we purchased legally. Our ships are for defense. As for technology sharing, we have offered fusion core designs 3 times. The Vrexians rejected them, calling our methods primitive. Primitive methods that produce more energy than our own systems," the Vrexian hissed. "You keep secrets. This proves your hostile intent." The debate continued for hours. Other species joined in. The Thalmorian collective, ancient beings of pure energy, sided with the Vrexians. "Humanity is too unpredictable," their representative said. "Too emotional. Too quick to conflict. We have observed thousands of species over millions of years. Humanity shows all the warning signs of a future threat. Some species defended humanity. The Kalari, a peaceful species of plant-based beings, spoke of human aid during their recent famine. They gave freely when we needed help," the Kalari ambassador said. "This does not seem aggressive to us." But the Kalari were a young species like humanity. Their voice carried little weight. Hyunwoo watched the debate with growing despair. He had fought in space battles against pirates. He had negotiated trade deals with alien merchants. He had dedicated his life to proving humanity belonged among the stars. Now he watched decades of work crumble. Captain Junho Park leaned close to him. "Admiral, we should prepare the evacuation protocols. Just in case." "Not yet," Hyunwoo whispered back. "We still have hope." But hope was a fragile thing. The vote came at sunset, or what passed for sunset on the station. The council speaker called for the decision. "All those in favor of banishment indicate now." 9 lights appeared on the chamber's central display. 9 species voting to cast humanity out. All those opposed, 3 lights. Only 3 species stood with humanity. The council speaker's voice was formal, emotionless. "The council has decided. Humanity is hereby expelled from the Galactic Council. All human personnel, structures, and vessels must withdraw to the Sol system within 90 standard days. After this period, any human presence beyond your home system will be considered an act of war and will be met with immediate military response." Sora Lee's face went pale. "You cannot do this. We have citizens on 14 worlds. Research stations. Trading posts, families. 90 days, the council speaker repeated. The judgment is final. The human delegation returned to their ship in silence. Hyunwoo immediately began coordinating the withdrawal. Messages flew across space at faster than light speeds. Colony administrators received their orders with shock and disbelief. Families packed their belongings with tears streaming down their faces. Scientists abandoned years of research. Traders lost their businesses overnight. Junho Park coordinated the military withdrawal. Human warships moved from system to system, protecting the evacuation convoys. Alien Council enforcers watched everything, their weapons ready, their patience thin. On Mars Colony 7, the last human settlement to evacuate, Hyunwoo walked through empty streets. This colony had been humanity's pride. 3 million people had called it home. Now the building stood silent and dark. Alien ships hovered overhead, waiting to claim what humanity had built. A young girl, maybe 7 years old, stood with her mother at the spaceport. She clutched a toy spaceship and looked up at Hyunwoo with confused eyes. "Why do we have to leave?" she asked. "This is my home." Hyunwoo knelt down to her level. He had no good answer. "Sometimes the galaxy is unfair," he said softly. "But we're strong. We'll survive this. Will we come back?" the girl asked. Before Hyunwoo could answer, her mother pulled her away, boarding the last transport. Junho Park stood beside Hyunwoo as they watched the transport lift off. The young captain's face was hard, angry. "This isn't right," he said. "We did nothing wrong." "No," Hyunwoo agreed. "We didn't. Admiral, what happens now? Do we just accept this?" Hyunwoo watched the alien ships move in to occupy the colony humanity had built with sweat and dreams. He thought about the little girl's question. "Will we come back?" "We remember," Hyunwoo said quietly. "We remember every moment of this, and we make sure that if we ever return to the galaxy, they will never be able to do this to us again." Junho Park nodded slowly. "We will remember," he repeated like a vow. The last human ship left Mars Colony 7 3 hours later. Behind them, the lights of human civilization winked out one by one as alien occupiers took control. Ahead of them lay the long journey back to Earth, back to the Sol system that would become humanity's prison. But in the hearts of every human on that ship, a fire had been lit. The galaxy had made a choice today. They had chosen to reject humanity, to push them away, to treat them as a threat rather than an ally. Someday, Hyunwoo thought, they would understand the mistake they made. Someday, humanity would show them what a real threat looked like. The ship jumped to faster than light speed, carrying humanity home to their cage. The first year after the banishment was the hardest. Across Earth, Luna, Mars, and the asteroid colonies, humanity struggled with anger and despair. People who had dreamed of walking on alien worlds now found themselves trapped in their own solar system. The stars that had seemed so close were suddenly impossibly far away. Ji-ho-nam watched the protests from his office window. Thousands of people filled the streets of Seoul, their voices rising in fury at the injustice. Signs demanded action, revenge, justice. Ji-ho understood their anger. He felt it too, burning in his chest like hot coal. But anger alone would not save humanity. He turned away from the window and looked at the classified documents on his desk. As the newly appointed director of the Secret Defense Initiative, he had a plan. It was dangerous and would take decades to complete. But if it worked, humanity would never be helpless again. Computer, contact General Sung-ho Yoon and engineer Min-ji Han. Tell them we're moving forward with Project Phoenix. Min-ji Han was only 25 years old when she joined the project. She had been a graduate student studying alien propulsion systems when the banishment happened. Her professors had told her that her research was useless now, that humanity would never need to travel between stars again. They were wrong. In a secret laboratory hidden beneath the lunar surface, Min-ji examined pieces of alien technology that had been left behind during the hasty withdrawal. The Council had forced humanity to abandon most of their equipment in the rush to evacuate. That equipment had secrets. The quantum full drive theory isn't just possible, she told Ji-ho during one of their meetings. It's practical. The aliens have been using a less efficient version for centuries. If we refine it, we could build ships that move twice as fast as anything in the galaxy. Ji-ho leaned forward. How long? 10 years to prototype. 20 to mass produce. You have 8 years for the prototype, Ji-ho said, and 15 for production. We don't have time for perfection. We need results, Minji nodded. She understood. Every year humanity remained trapped was another year the galaxy forgot about them. Another year their enemies grew stronger. Time was not their friend. General Seung-ho Yoon took a different approach to the problem. While Minji worked on technology, he rebuilt humanity's military from the ground up. The old Earth Defense Force had been designed to work alongside alien allies, following council regulations and treaties. Those treaties meant nothing now. Forget everything you learned about council warfare, he told new recruits at the military academy. The council fights by rules. They limit their weapons, restrict their tactics, and avoid total war. We're not going to do that. We're going to learn how to fight to win, not fight to look good. The training was brutal. Soldiers learned to operate in zero gravity, hostile atmospheres, and complete darkness. They practiced with weapons that pushed the boundaries of what the council considered acceptable. They studied every recorded battle in galactic history, learning from both victories and defeats. But more importantly, they learned to hate, not a wild, uncontrolled hatred, but a cold, focused anger that would burn for generations. They learned the names of every council species that had voted for banishment. They memorized the face of every alien ambassador who had condemned humanity. They promised themselves that they would never forget. In the Kuiper Belt, far from the sun and far from prying eyes, Dr. Nari Kim watched humanity transform. As a psychologist, she had been hired to monitor the mental health of the workers building the secret shipyards. What she found both horrified and fascinated her. We're developing what I call a siege mentality, she wrote in her classified reports. Humanity sees itself as survivors in a hostile universe. This gives us strength and unity, but it also makes us dangerous. We're becoming exactly what the council feared we might be. She walked through the construction yards, watching thousands of workers build warship after warship in complete secrecy. The ships were hidden among asteroids, camouflaged to look like mining operations. No alien probe would suspect that humanity was building the largest fleet in galactic history right under their noses. The years passed slowly. 5 years became 10. 10 became 20. Children who were born after the banishment grew up knowing only stories about the galaxy beyond Sol. They learned to resent a universe they had never seen. They trained for a war that had not yet begun. They waited for the day when humanity would return to the stars. Dongyun Bai was one of the few humans who still traveled among the aliens. As a deep-cover intelligence agent, he had been living on the planet Talmora for 15 years pretending to be a merchant. The council believed all humans had returned to Sol, but a handful of agents had remained behind, gathering information and waiting for their chance. His reports painted a picture of a galaxy that had moved on without humanity. The council had grown comfortable in their power. They had stopped expecting threats. Their fleets were designed for patrol duties and police actions, not real warfare. They had become soft. The Vrexian Empire is expanding again, he wrote in an encrypted message that would take months to reach Earth. They're oppressing the Kalari and 3 other young species. These species remember that humanity once helped them. They're angry at the council. If we return, we could have allies. This information was gold to Jihonam and his team. They began planning not just for military victory, but for political strategy. Humanity would not return as conquerors, but as liberators. They would use the council's own cruelty against them. By year 30, Minji Han had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. The quantum-fold drives worked perfectly. Human ships could now travel distances in hours that took alien ships days or weeks. Combined with new weapons, shields, and armor, humanity had achieved technological superiority. But technology alone would not be enough. They needed numbers. The shipyards in the Kuiper Belt expanded. New facilities opened in the Oort cloud even farther from the sun. Asteroid mining operations worked day and night, pulling raw materials from the solar system's endless resources. Every piece of metal, every circuit, every bolt went into building ships. General Seung-ho Yoon, now in his 70s, watched the 1,000th warship emerge from the construction bay. He had given his entire life to this moment. 1,000 ships, he said to himself, but we need 5,000, maybe more. Then we'll build 5,000, replied a younger officer standing beside him. It was Yoonji Park, daughter of the late Captain Junho Park. She had her father's determination and her mother's strategic mind. My father died believing we would return to the galaxy. I plan to make that belief real. Jihonam, now elderly and moving slowly, visited the shipyards for the last time. He had spent 50 years of his life on Project Phoenix. He had sacrificed his youth, his health, and any chance at a normal life. But as he looked at the fleet humanity had built in secret, he felt satisfaction. "They think we're broken," he said to Minji Han, who had become the chief engineer of the entire military program. "They think 50 years of isolation destroyed us." Minji smiled. "They're about to learn how wrong they are." In classrooms across human space, teachers told children about the banishment. They taught them about the injustice, the betrayal, the cruelty of the Council. But they also taught them about resilience, determination, and the strength of humanity. "Never forget," the teachers said. "Never forgive. And never stop preparing." Dr. Nari Kim completed her final report in year 48. "Humanity has changed," she wrote. "We're no longer the optimistic species that joined the Council. We're harder now, more focused, more dangerous. When we return to the galaxy, they won't recognize us. The question is, will we recognize ourselves?" The 50th anniversary of the banishment was marked with ceremonies across all human worlds. People gathered to remember the day they lost the stars. Veterans from the evacuation shared their stories. Young soldiers swore oaths to reclaim what had been taken, and in orbit above Earth, Fleet Admiral Taeyang Song stood on the bridge of the flagship Phoenix Rising. He was the supreme commander of Operation Homecoming, chosen by Jiho Nam himself before the old director died. Taeyang had been a child during the banishment. He had grown up in humanity's cage. He had spent his entire adult life preparing for one purpose. "Status report," he commanded. 5,000 warships ready for deployment, Admiral. All crews at full readiness. Supplies loaded, weapons armed. We're ready." Taeyang looked at the tactical display showing the positions of every ship in humanity's secret fleet. 50 years of planning had led to this moment. 50 years of sacrifice, anger, and determination. "Send the order to all ships," he said calmly. "Prepare for jump to Council space. It's time to remind the galaxy that humanity exists, and this time we're not asking for permission." Fleet Admiral Taeyang Song studied the holographic map floating above his desk. It showed every Council member's home system, their fleet positions, their trade routes, and their weaknesses. He had been studying this map for 3 years, memorizing every detail. Soon that knowledge would mean the difference between victory and extinction. "Admiral, Captain Hana Shin is requesting permission to speak with you." His aide announced. "Send her in." Hana entered the office, with the confident stride of someone who had spent years commanding stealth ships in enemy territory. She was lean and sharp-featured, with eyes that seemed to see everything. As commander of the reconnaissance division, she had been sneaking ships past Council patrols for the last 5 years. "The latest surveys are complete," she said, placing a data chip on his desk. "We've mapped all 12 Council home systems. Their patrol patterns are predictable, their defenses are outdated, and their response times are slow. They're not ready for war." Taeyang loaded the data and reviewed it carefully. "What about the Vrexian Empire specifically? They started this mess. I want to know everything about them. Their fleet is the largest in Council space, but it's spread thin across their territory. They're busy keeping their conquered species under control. Most of their ships are designed for planetary bombardment and intimidation, not ship-to-ship combat." Hana paused. "They're bullies, Admiral. And bullies don't know how to fight someone who hits back." "Good. What else?" "The Thalmorian Collective has the most advanced technology, but their ships are old. Some of them are over 500 years old. They rely on reputation more than actual capability." Hana smiled coldly. "They've been at peace for so long they've forgotten what war looks like." Taeyang nodded. This matched his own analysis. The Council had grown comfortable, lazy even. They had no peer adversaries. They had spent centuries dealing with minor conflicts and rebellions by young species who lacked real military power. They had never faced a prepared, unified, technologically advanced enemy. They had never faced humanity at war. "How many ships did we lose during reconnaissance?" Taeyang asked. 3 ships over 5 years. All captured by sensor nets we didn't anticipate. The crews activated self-destruct protocols before the Council could interrogate them. Hana's voice was steady, but Taeyang could hear the sadness underneath. "Those crews had been her people. They died buying us knowledge," Taeyang said quietly. "We'll honor their sacrifice by making sure it wasn't wasted." Across the solar system, Vice Admiral Yoonji Park ran simulation after simulation. She had her father's tactical mind and had spent years studying every recorded Council battle. Her team of analysts had built computer models of council warfare doctrine and tested them against human strategies. The results were always the same. The council lost. They fight by rules, she explained to her staff during a briefing. They limit civilian casualties. They avoid destroying infrastructure. They try to minimize losses on both sides. These rules make sense for maintaining order in their territory. But against an enemy who doesn't follow those rules, they're at a severe disadvantage. A young officer raised his hand. Are we going to target civilians, Admiral? No, Yunji said firmly. We're better than that. But we will destroy military targets completely. We will hit multiple systems simultaneously so they can't coordinate a response. We will use psychological warfare to break their will to fight, and we will not give them time to adapt. She pulled up a star map showing the planned attack routes. The key is speed and overwhelming force. We hit them everywhere at once. They won't know where to defend. By the time they organize a response, we'll already be negotiating terms. Meanwhile, deep in the intelligence division, Agent Donghyun Bei's reports were being analyzed for strategic opportunities. He had spent decades living among aliens, watching the council from within. His latest message was particularly valuable. The younger species hate the council, the message said. The Kalari remember humanity fondly. The Brixons still resent their conquest by the Vrexians. The Norath want independence but lack the military strength. If humanity returns as liberators rather than conquerors, we could fracture the council before the first shot is fired. Taeyang called a meeting of his senior staff to discuss this opportunity. Hana Shin, Yoonji Park, and the heads of intelligence and psychological warfare gathered in the secure conference room aboard the Phoenix Rising. We have a choice, Taeyang began. We can return to the galaxy seeking pure revenge, or we can be strategic about this. Dongyun's intelligence suggests we have potential allies if we play this correctly. Allies who stood by and watched while we were banished. Hana said bitterly. Allies who were too weak to help us then, Taeyang corrected. But who might be strong enough to help us now if we give them the opportunity? Think about the endgame. We don't just want to defeat the council. We want to reshape the entire political structure of the galaxy. We need allies for that. Yoonji pulled up demographic data. The younger species outnumber the elder races 3-1. But the elder races control all the military power and economic resources. If we can shift that balance, we change everything. The head of psychological warfare, a grizzled veteran named Commander Iseo Kwan, spoke up. We should broadcast our return simultaneously across all council channels. Show them our fleet. Show them our strength. Make it clear we're not asking permission anymore. The message needs to be powerful enough to inspire the oppressed and terrify the oppressors. What about Ambassador Sora Lee? Yoonji asked. She's elderly now, but she was there during the banishment. Having her speak would be symbolically powerful. Taeyang smiled. I've already asked her. She said she wouldn't miss this for anything. The planning continued for months. Every detail was scrutinized. Fleet formations were designed for maximum visual impact. Broadcasting protocols were tested to ensure the message would reach every inhabited world simultaneously. Psychological profiles were created for each council species, identifying their fears and weaknesses. Minji Han, now the chief engineer overseeing all human ships, made final modifications to the fleet. I've added something special to the flagship, she told Taeyang during an inspection. A sensor package that can broadcast its readings across all our ships simultaneously. When we enter a system, every ship will know exactly what we're facing in real time. Perfect coordination. How long did that take to develop? 15 years. The aliens don't have anything like it. They still rely on individual ship sensors and delayed communications. Minji grinned. We've had 50 years to innovate without anyone looking over our shoulders. We've built things they can't even imagine. As the launch date approached, Taeyang walked through the massive fleet assembled in the Kuiper Belt. 5,000 warships, each one a masterpiece of human engineering. The smallest was twice the size of any ship humanity had possessed before the banishment. The largest, the Phoenix Rising, was bigger than some of the asteroids surrounding it. Each ship bore the names of cities, heroes, or concepts important to humanity. There was the Soul's Pride, the Mars Reborn, the Never Forget, the Second Chance. Each name told a story of loss and hope. The crews were the children of the banishment. Most had been born after humanity's expulsion from the galaxy. They had grown up hearing stories about the injustice done to their parents and grandparents. They had trained their entire lives for this mission. They were ready. In her quarters aboard the Phoenix Rising, Ambassador Sora Lee recorded her message. She was 89 years old now, her hair white and her face lined with age, but her eyes still burned with the same fire that had blazed during the Council's judgment 50 years ago. "People of the galaxy," she began, her voice strong despite her age. "50 years ago you cast humanity out. You called us dangerous. You said we were aggressive. You said we couldn't be trusted. You were right to fear us, but not for the reasons you thought." She paused, letting the words sink in. "You should have feared us because we don't break. You should have feared us because we don't forget. You should have feared us because when you push us down we come back stronger." Taeyang watched the recording and felt chills run down his spine. This would be the first message broadcast when the fleet emerged from their quantum jumps. It would be humanity's declaration that they had returned. The final briefing took place one day before launch. Every captain in the fleet attended virtually, their faces displayed on thousands of screens in the Phoenix Rising's main conference hall. "Tomorrow, we leave Sol System," Taeyang announced. "Some of you will not return. Some of you will die in the battles ahead, but all of you will be remembered as the generation that freed humanity from its cage." Questions? A young captain raised her hand. "What if they surrender immediately? Then we accept their surrender and begin negotiations. We're not looking for genocide. We're looking for justice and security." Another captain spoke up. "What if they don't surrender?" Taeyang's face hardened. "Then we show them why you should never back a species into a corner. We show them what desperation and 50 years of preparation creates. We show them humanity." The fleet departed at dawn, Earth time. Taeyang stood on the bridge of the Phoenix Rising, watching his home system fall away for what might be the last time. The quantum jump ended with a flash of light that lit up the darkness of space. In 12 different star systems across Council space, human fleets appeared simultaneously. It was exactly noon, Council Standard Time. Every alien in the galaxy would remember what they were doing at this moment for the rest of their lives. At the Grand Nexus Station, Captain Hana Shin's Vanguard fleet materialized without warning. 200 warships arranged in perfect formation, their weapons powered but not yet firing. The station's defense system screamed warnings. Council security ships scrambled to respond, but they moved slowly, confused and uncertain. Then every communication channel in the galaxy, public and private, military and civilian, erupted with the same broadcast. Ambassador Sora Lee's face appeared on billions of screens. Even at 89 years old, she commanded attention. Her eyes held the accumulated anger of 50 years of exile. "People of the galaxy," her voice rang out clearly. 50 years ago, the Council cast humanity out. You called us dangerous. You said we were too aggressive, too unpredictable. You voted to banish us to our home system, where you believed isolation would break our spirit and make us harmless. On the bridge of the Phoenix Rising, Fleet Admiral Taeyang Song watched the broadcast with satisfaction. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency. Sensors tracked every Council ship in the system. Weapons remained ready but held. "You were wrong," Sora continued. "Isolation didn't break us. It forged us into something stronger. For 50 years we built in secret. We innovated. We prepared. We remembered every injustice. And now we have returned not to ask for readmission, but to demand the justice you denied us." Across the galaxy, reactions varied wildly. On Earth and human colonies, people watched with tears streaming down their faces. The younger generation, who had never seen the galaxy beyond Sol, stared in awe at the images of their fleet dominating alien space. In council chambers on a dozen worlds, politicians panicked. Their defense forces were scattered across their territories, unprepared for simultaneous threats. Their military commanders pulled up tactical displays and felt their hearts sink at what they saw. "Behind me stands the largest military fleet ever assembled in galactic history," Sora said, and the broadcast switched to show the human armada. Ship after ship filled the screen, each one bristling with weapons and armored plating that gleamed in starlight. 5,000 warships, powered by technology you don't have, crewed by soldiers who have trained their entire lives for this moment, led by commanders who have studied every battle you've ever fought. At the Grand Nexus, the station commander, a Thalmorian named Velroth, activated emergency protocols. He had been a junior counselor during humanity's banishment. Now he was the ranking official at the station. and he suddenly regretted every decision that had led to this moment. "This is Station Command to Human Fleet," he transmitted, his energy-based voice crackling with stress. "You are violating Council space. Leave immediately or we will fire on you." Hana Shin smiled coldly. "Station Command, this is Captain Hana Shin of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. You have two choices. Stand down and prepare for negotiations or find out how badly you've underestimated us. Choose quickly." Velroth looked at his tactical display. His station had defensive weapons, but they were designed to deter pirates and small raiders. Against 200 advanced warships, they were useless. His security ships numbered 15, all of them small patrol craft. "Hold fire," he ordered reluctantly. "Open a channel to the Council. Tell them humanity has returned." Sora Lee's broadcast continued. "We do not come as conquerors. We come seeking justice. But make no mistake. If the Council refuses to negotiate in good faith, we will take by force what should have been ours by right. We have demands. We will present them shortly. Consider your response carefully." The broadcast ended, leaving billions of beings across the galaxy in stunned silence. In the Vrexian home system, the local defense fleet mobilized immediately. The Vrexians were warriors by nature, and they had been the primary voice calling for humanity's banishment. Their pride would not allow them to appear weak. Admiral Krovis, commander of the Vrexian Third Fleet, assembled his forces. 300 warships, the pride of the Empire. They had conquered 6 species over the centuries. They had never lost a major engagement. "Human ships, you are trespassing in Vrexian space," Krovis transmitted. "Leave now or be destroyed." Vice Admiral Yunji Park, commanding the human fleet in Vrexian space, responded calmly. "Admiral Krovis, we have studied your tactics for 50 years. We know how you fight. We know your ship capabilities. We know your standard formations. And we know you've never faced an enemy with technology equal to your own. This is your only warning. Stand down." "The Vrexian Empire does not yield to threats," Krovis snapped back. "All ships attack formation." "Prepare to fire," Yunji sighed. "So be it. All ships engage targets. Destroy their fleet." The battle of the Vrexian home system lasted 3 hours and 27 minutes. It should have lasted weeks. Human ships moved with coordination the Vrexians had never seen. Every ship knew what every other ship was doing in real time. When the Vrexians fired their plasma cannons, human shields absorbed the impact easily. When humans returned fire, their weapons tore through Vrexian armor like paper. Krovis realized his mistake within the first 30 minutes. His ships were being destroyed systematically, picked apart by enemies who seemed to predict his every move. He tried every tactic he knew, every strategy that had won battles in the past. Nothing worked. "Request reinforcements from the Second Fleet," he ordered desperately. "Sir, the Second Fleet is engaged with another human force at the Andros Expanse. They can't help us. What about the First Fleet?" "Also engaged, sir. The humans are attacking everywhere simultaneously." Krovis watched another 5 ships disappear from his tactical display. He had started with 300. He now had less than 100, and the humans had lost only 7 ships. "All vessels cease fire and withdraw," he ordered, his pride finally breaking. "We surrender." Yunji Park accepted the surrender and ordered her ships to stop firing. The remaining Vrexian ships were ordered to power down weapons and engines. Human Marines would board them shortly to ensure compliance. "Broadcast this battle to all Council species," Yunji ordered. "Let them see what happens when they fight us." Within hours, footage of the battle spread across the galaxy. Military analysts watched in horror as humanity dismantled the mighty Vrexian fleet with ease. The tactics, the technology, the coordination were all far beyond anything the Council possessed. On dozens of worlds, politicians rushed to emergency meetings. The species who had voted for humanity's banishment 50 years ago now feared human revenge. The younger species who had been oppressed by the elder races watched with growing hope. At the Grand Nexus, the Council convened an emergency session. All 12 species were represented, though many had to join virtually due to human fleets blockading their home systems. Taeyang Song appeared as a hologram before the Council. He wore his full military uniform, covered in medals and honors. Behind him, visible through the viewport of the Phoenix Rising, the Grand Nexus station hung like a prize already won. "Councilors," he began, his voice formal but hard, "I am Fleet Admiral Taeyang Song of humanity. 50 years ago you cast us out unjustly. Today we present our terms for peace." Velroth, speaking for the Council, tried to maintain dignity. You have invaded our space, destroyed our ships, and threatened our worlds. This is not how civilized species behave. Neither is banishing an innocent species, Taeyang shot back. You want to talk about civilized behavior? Let's talk about the 50 years you stole from us. Let's talk about the families you separated, the dreams you crushed, the progress you halted. You made us prisoners in our own system for half a century. Now you stand in judgment of us? The council chambers fell silent. Here are our demands, Taeyang continued. First, full reinstatement of humanity into the Galactic Council with permanent seats. Not 1 seat, but 4. Second, complete return of all colony worlds we established before the banishment, plus 12 additional systems for expansion. Third, full reparations for economic losses. Fourth, formal apology from every species that voted for our exile. And fifth, complete revision of Council Charter to prevent this injustice from ever happening again. Councillor Velroth's energy form flickered with distress. These demands are extreme. The Council will never agree. Then the Council will fall, Taeyang said simply. We're not asking permission anymore. We're telling you how this ends. You can agree peacefully, or we will dismantle your authority system by system. The choice is yours. As if on cue, broadcasts began from a dozen oppressed species across the galaxy. The Kalari, the Brixen, the Norath, and others publicly declared support for humanity. They demanded independence from the elder races who had conquered them. They requested human protection. The Council was fracturing before the galaxy's eyes. Velroth looked at the other Council members. Many avoided his gaze. The Vrexians, their fleet in ruins, said nothing. The Thalmorians, facing human fleets in their own space, remained silent. The species who had once been so confident in their power now felt that power slipping away. We need time to consider, Velroth said finally. The negotiations took 6 months. 6 long months of arguments, compromises, and threats. The council chambers became a battlefield where words replaced weapons, but the stakes were just as high. Humanity held the military advantage, but they needed political legitimacy. The council had political authority, but their military was broken. Neither side could win completely, so they had to find middle ground. Fleet Admiral Taeyang Song attended every session. He stood firm on humanity's core demands, refusing to compromise on the fundamental issues. Ambassador Sora Lee worked alongside him, her lifetime of diplomatic experience guiding the negotiations through dangerous waters. You're asking for 4 council seats, Councillor Velroth argued during one heated session. That's unprecedented. No species has more than 1. No species has been unjustly banished for 50 years, Sora replied calmly. Precedent was broken when you expelled us. We're simply ensuring it never happens again. 4 seats give us enough influence to prevent any similar action in the future. What you're really asking for is veto power, a Vrexian representative said bitterly. The Vrexians had lost much of their pride after their fleet's destruction. Their conquered territories were already declaring independence with human backing. We're asking for security, Taeyang corrected, something you denied us before. Now we're taking it because we must. The younger species watched these negotiations with intense interest. They saw that the elder races could be challenged, could be defeated, could be forced to negotiate as equals. It changed everything about galactic politics. In the halls outside the formal sessions, private deals were made. Humanity met with the Kalari, offering protection in exchange for trade agreements. They spoke with the Brixen about technology sharing. They promised the Norath independence if they supported the new council charter. Engineer Minji Han, now celebrated as the genius behind humanity's technological leap, began setting up exchange programs. We're not going to hoard our technology like the elder races did, she told her staff. We'll share it with our allies. A strong alliance benefits everyone. The first students from younger species arrived at human universities. They studied quantum fold drive theory, shield harmonics, and weapons design. They learned not just the technology, but the philosophy behind it. Humanity was building a coalition that would last generations. On the military front, General Sung Ho Yoon's vision became reality. The combined fleet was formed, mixing human and allied species ships into unified commands. Human officers trained alien crews. Alien tacticians learned human strategies. It was messy at first, with cultural misunderstandings and communication problems, but slowly it worked. Captain Hana Shin commanded the first mixed human Kalari squadron. They're eager learners, she reported to Taeyang. And they bring perspectives we don't have. Combining our strengths makes us all more effective. The Council tried to resist some of humanity's demands, but their position grew weaker by the day. More species declared independence. Trade routes shifted to favor human-allied systems. The economic power that had sustained the elder races for centuries began flowing to new channels. Finally, after 6 months of negotiations, the new Galactic Charter was drafted. Ambassador Sora Lee presented it to the full council with Taeyang standing beside her. This charter represents a fundamental change in how the galaxy governs itself, she announced. No species can be expelled without unanimous consent of all member species. Military forces must maintain parity between all members. Technology sharing protocols will be established to prevent any single species from dominating others. And most importantly, younger species will have equal representation to elder races. Velroth read through the charter carefully. It stripped away much of the power the elder races had held for millennia. But he looked at the human fleet still stationed at the Grand Nexus and knew they had no real choice. The Thalmorian Collective accepts these terms, he said quietly, his energy form dimming with resignation. One by one, the other council species agreed. Some did so willingly, seeing the wisdom in the new system. Others agreed only because they feared the alternative. But all of them signed. Humanity received 4 permanent council seats. Their colonies were returned and 12 new systems were granted for expansion. Reparations were set at a figure that would take decades to pay, but would help rebuild what had been lost. And each species that had voted for banishment 50 years ago issued formal apologies. The Vrexian representative stood before the council and the galaxy. His humiliation was complete, broadcast to every world. The Vrexian Empire apologizes to humanity for our role in the banishment. We were wrong. We let fear guide us instead of justice. We will work to earn humanity's trust in the future. Similar apologies followed from other species. Some were sincere, others were clearly forced. But they all went into the historical record, ensuring that no one would forget what had happened. On the day the new charter was ratified, celebrations erupted across human space. People who had lived their entire lives in the Sol system wept with joy at finally being free. Families made plans to resettle the returned colonies. Young people applied for positions on ships heading to the 12 new systems. But Taeyang Song watched the celebrations with mixed feelings. He met privately with Dr. Nari Kim, who had continued her psychological studies of humanity throughout the crisis. "We won," he said. "We got everything we demanded. Why doesn't it feel like victory?" Nari smiled sadly. "Because you know what we became to achieve it. I warned about this 50 years ago. The siege mentality that saved us also changed us. We're harder now. More militaristic, more suspicious. We won our freedom, but we lost some of our innocence. Was it worth it? That's not for me to answer. But I will say this, the galaxy needed to be shaken up. The elder races were corrupt and complacent. The younger species were oppressed. Maybe it took humanity's transformation to force change. Maybe our suffering had purpose." Taeyang nodded slowly. "We can never go back to what we were before the banishment." "No," Nari agreed. "But we can choose what we become next. We have power now. The question is how we use it." In the years that followed, humanity worked to answer that question. Taeyang established strict protocols for the military. Human forces would be used to protect, not conquer. They would defend their allies, not oppress them. They would maintain their strength but temper it with wisdom. Minji Han's technology sharing program flourished. Within 5 years, a dozen species had quantum fold drives. Within 10 years, shield technology had spread throughout the alliance. The military advantage that had won humanity's return began to fade as their allies caught up. Some human officials worried about this. "Let them worry," Minji told Taeyang. "Security through monopoly is temporary. Security through alliance is permanent. I'd rather have 100 species who can defend themselves fighting beside us than 100 species who depend on us and might resent it." The former Vrexian territories became a test case for the new order. Humanity helped the newly independent species establish governments, build economies, and create defense forces. It was slow work, often frustrating, but it proved that the new system could work. Young diplomat Ji Woo Moon led many of these efforts. She had been born during the banishment and had grown up hearing stories of the injustice. but she also believed in building rather than destroying. My parents' generation fought for our freedom, she told a gathering of young aliens and humans. Our generation's job is to make sure that freedom means something. We need to build a galaxy where no species fears banishment, where no species suffers what humanity suffered. 10 years after humanity's return, Taeyang Song retired from military service. He returned to Earth, to Seoul, to the city where he had been born during the darkest days of isolation. The city had changed dramatically. Alien tourists walked the streets. Human and alien businesses operated side by side. The sky was filled with ships from a dozen different species. He stood in a park watching children play. Some were human, some were alien, and they played together without thinking about their differences. It was a scene that would have been impossible before humanity's return. Ambassador Sora Lee, now 99 years old and moving slowly, joined him on the bench. "We did it," she said softly. "Not perfectly, but we did it." "Do you ever regret the path we took?" Taeyang asked. "The militarization, the aggression, the transformation into something the Council feared?" Sora was quiet for a long moment. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that we lost 50 years. I regret the lives lost in the battles, but I don't regret fighting for our freedom. The Council gave us no other choice." "They made us into what they feared most," Taeyang said. "Yes," Sora agreed. "They tried to cage humanity, and instead they forged us into something stronger. They thought isolation would break us. They were wrong about that. But more importantly, they were wrong about what we would do with our strength. We didn't become conquerors. We became protectors. That's what they didn't understand about humanity." Taeyang watched a human child help an alien child climb a tree. Such a simple moment, but it represented everything they had fought for. "We came back with a fleet," he said. "But we stayed because we brought something more valuable than weapons." "What's that?" Sora asked.